Taking a look at Purdue, again, big physical Big Ten team. They do a good job running the ball, different gap schemes. They're physical on defense, well coached on defense, so it'll be a good challenge. We definitely got to take another step, but we'll be ready to go Saturday.
Going back and just looking at that film from the Oregon game, what are some of the biggest things that stood out to you on both sides of the ball?
Self-inflicted stuff. There wasn't really anything that, we go, oh, wow, they had our numbers. Just we were either giving them too much respect and playing too soft in coverage, or basic fundamental techniques weren't there than they have been all year. So that's something that, hey, okay, why'd this happen? We got to go out there. We got to execute, especially in those big moments, big games. That's where it becomes even more crucial.
What about the physicality that Oregon brought as a Big Ten team now is going to help you get ready for this Purdue game?
Yeah, I think it was a great challenge, obviously because of their talent, their size, and it was a good kind of first for a lot of these guys, because a lot of new players, young players, their first real taste of that kind of big physical football team.
Coach, if you could take us behind the scenes a little bit the last couple of days, like how do you go about flipping the page and getting the team to move on, and kind of how do you attack that transition after a loss like that?
Yeah, kind of going back, I've said it before, but it's really, everything is week to week. You got to be able to, whether you win or lose, play well or don't play well, you got to be able to flush the last week, take the things to learn from and move on, because no matter how you did against the team you played the week before, whether we beat Oregon, lost Oregon, or whatever happened, that's not going to mean anything come Purdue. It's about what you can get better at from what you saw in game and then improve for them.
And then message-wise, when you meet for the team, I don't know if you guys probably met yesterday, what is the message to them to kind of get, these are 18 and 22-year-olds, how do you get them to flip the page? It's easier said than done.
There's no question it is. It was really, they're kind of the tale of two halves is what we talked about. You look at where that game was at halftime. Offensively, we really had dictated the terms of how the game was going to play. They had very little time of possession, very little total plays. We were on script for what we wanted to do, and we just kind of lost it in that third quarter. The start of it, they score 3 and out, they score 3 and out. That's really where the game got away from us. But knowing, right, hey, for that first half, you guys are right there with one of the top teams in the country. But here's the things you need to do if you want to beat a team like that.
Giovanni in the first half was part of that, staying with them. What do you think of the way he played? And do you see an opportunity to maybe continue to add more responsibility to him and maybe open things up further on offense?
Yeah, I think he just keeps getting better. I think he's gotten better every week. There's still stuff he's got to do, more of for us to get to that point. But he's getting better and he's feeling more comfortable. Yeah, I was happy with kind of his progression over the last 3 games.
It seemed like the first 2 weeks, your identity in the team and talking to the players throughout the week leading up to Oregon was that they wanted to outwork teams in the fourth quarter. When you do fall short in a game like that, like the opposite of the identity that you kind of had the first 2 weeks, how do you go about that? Do you bring the team back to this is our identity, or is it more of a reality check for them? Like, hey, there was our identity for the first 2 teams, and then we really got exposed. Like, how do you go about that? Finishing in the fourth quarter, something that you prided yourself so much in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's you look at why that took place, and like I said, it was a lot of just basic fundamental stuff that we did not do that we had been doing. And when that's really the example, and here's what you got to take from it is when these things fall apart, it doesn't matter how talented you are or how good you are, you're going to get exposed by a good team when those fundamentals aren't there. And so that's what you're hoping they gain from it is, okay, how could we have changed that outcome? Here's how. Okay, now we got to make sure we get it done against Purdue.
Yeah, and speaking of Purdue, I know you said they're a really physical team and another Big Ten opponent, big conference. What are some things that maybe stick out to you other than physicality on the offensive and defensive side?
Just good. Good quarterback, good running backs. They've got good receivers, tall. They got length at receiver. So I think it's another just good challenge of a very talented team.
During practice today, did you notice the energy kind of ramp back up and, that clean slate of knowing that, hey, look, what happened, now we're on to a new week?
We didn't practice today. Today's their day off, but we did some work yesterday. And, yeah, they moved on pretty good. They didn't hang their heads. They weren't, whatever. They didn't let that loss affect how we worked yesterday, and I expect the same thing tomorrow.
Who were some of those players that maybe kind of stepped up and said, let's move on to Purdue?
I think it's been kind of a collective whole. I think I've been impressed with how they've handled the adversity in every game. And I was very impressed with how they were able to show up yesterday after a tough loss and a disappointing loss and still get back to work and understand, like, it's one game. We gotta get better so we can continue to get back on the road to success.
You mentioned the fundamentals that sort of plagued you, and I imagine a lot of those were on defense. What were a couple of the areas that were exposed on defense where you kind of fell short there?
Well, it's just the way we play. We got away from a little bit, right? We want to challenge people and put our hands on receivers and make every throw contested. We were too far off at times. So just going back to, hey, this is how we play, and we play this way for a reason. And when you challenge people and challenge them to make plays on you consistently, they aren't going to do it. But we can't have free access stuff, and we can't just give them free access throws.
Do you worry about a hangover from a loss like that, or do you remain confident that you've already seen signs that they're starting to flip the page?
Yeah, I think since I've been here, even as coordinator, we had games where, that didn't look. I remember Washington State last year was nowhere near as good as we can play, and they came back and performed really well against Utah. So you're not going to be perfect every game, but the biggest thing, like I said, is learning from those things and why that happened so it doesn't happen again.
I know you always want to keep the focus on the field, but there was huge off-field news last week with the expansion of the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. Is the simple fact that now there is certainty about the direction of this department and this team and the program and its future, is that certainty helpful as a coach leading the program?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's more, down the road stuff. I think recruiting and things like that. Actually, right now this season, no bearing on, what we're in right now. But moving forward, yeah, I think so.
Over half of Bill and Gabriel's targets came targeting your linebackers and slot corner. Just kind of how do you move forward and, kind of work on that with those guys, and then also, give them support from other spots?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, we cut guys loose. I mean, that's really what happened. And that goes back to the fundamentals of my responsibility and how to play. It wasn't that a guy beat us physically at the point of attack. It was we straight up cut a guy loose too many times, and they were wide open, and that's why no one was there. And so those are the things that just cannot happen. That's too easy for an offense.
And then doing your favorite segment of the week, injuries. We see Skylar Thomas exit the game last week, and then Jacob Strand as well. Darius Clemens again doesn't go. Same with Van Wells. Just kind of where do you see these guys coming back, and what's your confidence level they'll play this weekend?
Yeah, the three of them definitely will be back, and the other one, Jacob, we got to wait and see because he's still getting checked out. But Skylar, Darius, and Van Wells should all be back.
You said definitely for Clemens. You feel that confident that
Yeah,
he'll
he
play this
practiced
weekend?
yesterday, and so did Skylar, and so did Van Wells. So that's why I feel good about it. Yeah. Well, I don't know because he's never played in a Beaver uniform. So, but I mean, just his physical ability, size, ability to run, what it can do to a defense. I'm excited to get him on the field finally.